Hey everybody, it's a beautiful day here in Florida today. If there's a silver lining out of Hurricane Irma, is it brought in a little bit cooler weather for a few days. I've been thinking about this for a while. Last year I switched over from cooking a lot of my meals to doing more freezer bag cooking. Well, the ultimate, freezer bag are these kind of mountain house type meals, if you will, where you pour the water in, you seal it back up, and you let the hot water hydrate your meal. And that's essentially what a freezer bag type cooking is at the $6.50 range per meal. And you can't always find these on the trail. So what do? Well, let me introduce you to the freezer bag method here. You start out with a pouch. I bought this one from Anti-Gravity Gear, but you can make these. It's just Reflectix that's been folded over. This one just happens to be kind of gusseted down here, so it can expand a little bit to help it stand up. But you use this in conjunction with a quart Ziploc bag, and it's very important that it's a freezer bag. If you try and use something that's a non-freezer bag, you will probably have a melt through. Okay, and so the idea is you're going to heat up your water, and almost anything you use is going to require 2 cups or less. So a 550 milliliter cup I found to be plenty of capacity for that. Last year I was using a liter. At 1.1 it was the boiler, so it was a bigger pot. And the idea was if I wanted to do something more gourmet or something more complicated, I had the capacity to do that. I never really did use it that way. And I ate, and because I ate out of this last year, then you had to clean it. And at the time it was like, well, I don't want to have all the hydrocarbons leaking from my Ziploc bags into my food, and how terrible that would be. Well, guess what? I got some E. coli poisoning from somewhere, and even though I did a really good job of trying to keep my pot clean, you just never know. And so so that was in 2016. In 2017, I switched over to freezer bag cooking, because when you're done with this, you're done. You zip it up, and it goes in the trash, and there's no cleanup except your utensil. So, and how you do this is you can either be an Idaho potatoes type of a thing, or a pasta side, or let's see, something that I found before I left. Nora has something different, something new. It's called a Select. At the time that I left on the trail, this is the only kind they had. Since then, there's now 4 kinds that are out. This really was good. And I never found it on the trail. It either had to be sent to me, but hopefully, now that they're actually starting to advertise on television, because they weren't back in April, but now they're starting to advertise this on television. This is my absolute favorite. Okay, for a North Select meal. You basically take the contents of this, drop it in there, and then you're going to slide it in the pouch here, and then you're going to add the water, fold it over. And my rule of thumb is, now of course the Idaho potatoes are pretty much within 3 minutes they're done. You don't really hydrate those anyway. You can actually cut this off and put the water right in here and eat out of this. I saw guys, and I tried it once, where you slit the top this direction, okay, and the pouch folds open, and you put the water in. A lot easier to stir, a lot easier to mix, but man, I had a hard time having it not spill out. So I tried that once, and after that I just threw it in the bag and ate it out of the Ziploc bag. You can, and I have seen people rehydrate in these. There's actually aluminum lining on the inside. So I have actually seen people, cut the top off and put that in here. All right. And put the water in and rehydrate. and I've done that, and it works fine. Now let's talk about meals themselves and what I discovered. Okay, Idaho potatoes, absolutely no issue. But with all of these meals, you've got to put something with them. One of my favorites is the Spam. You know, Spam and potatoes actually go really, really well together. This is 2.5 ounces. It contains 210 calories, 18 grams of actual fat. And, initially you say, oh, fat's bad. Well, no, when you're hiking, fat is good. Your body likes to burn fat. It does have sodium, 830 milligrams of sodium, okay? It's low on carbs, only 2 carbs, but 9 grams of protein. So remember that, 9 grams of protein, 210 calories in a 2.5 ounces, 71 grams, okay? What are some of your other choices for protein? Here is this Mediterranean tuna. It's got the oil in it. It's about 2.6, so 74 grams, only 150 calories, okay, but 14 grams of protein. So you're getting more protein than you have with your Spam, but less calories. So at some point in time, both of those become important. Protein and calories become very, very important. Another favorite. This one's 180 calories, 18 grams of protein, extra virgin olive oil in it. So you're gonna get some fat, and try and get the ones that have the olive oil in them. Of course, they do have the ones that have just the water, but honestly, you need the fat. Okay, so there's some ways to add protein in. Now on the trail, you can find this chunk chicken breast in an 8-ounce package at a lot of Walmarts sometimes. Nowhere else you find it. Our local grocery store here just started carrying the 3-ounce. On this last leg, I actually found that 8-ounce packages. I bought 2 of them. That's a pound of chicken. Okay, that's a lot of weight. The temperature was such that I couldn't save half of it and use it the next day. You can get away with that in February, March, April in the mountains. You can make it stretch the next day if you're careful and don't contaminate it. I'm hoping that this starts showing up on the trail. Now it's 3 ounces, so it's perfect for putting in with a meal. Now calorie-wise though, it's only 80 calories. That's the downside. Okay, but it does have 17 grams of protein, so it's got good protein, not a great lot of calories. But you know what? This you can mix with all sorts of stuff. That would go great with this cheese risotto, for example. Your cheesy cheddar pasta type sides. Here's a chicken flavored rice and pasta dish it would go great with. And I don't have in front of me here, but ramen noodles is a good comfort food. It's a good food to, if you're still hungry, to kind of cook another one up and eat it. And you don't have to get the water boiling for it to work. It's just got to be hot. But if you mix this with it, it helps make it more of a complete meal. And it became one of my, actually, I this last year, excuse me, here in 2017, I would take the ramen noodles because they're so light, and I would put a meat with it to eat it. Now sometimes I didn't actually mix it because I kind of think that's gross sometimes, especially tuna fish and noodles. Not my favorite thing in the world. So I would eat the tuna fish while the ramen noodles rehydrating, or put this in it. And I really liked the ramen bomb. Now the ramen bomb is when you do up your ramen noodles, and then you mix a package of potatoes with it. For me, a whole package of potatoes with the ramen was way too much, so I would use half. Now, the other thing you have to consider when you're packing out food is a volume problem. And that's why this sometimes doesn't work real well. Okay, there's not much you can do to reduce the volume of this without taking everything out of it. So these have a lot of volume in them. So what a lot of people do, and what I did, is in town before I packed out, all of these would be put in a Ziploc bag. I would dump it out into here, and if I felt like I needed to write on it what it was, then I would. So all this packaging, honestly, I would just transfer to this. So that eliminates using this as a cooking bag in favor of getting rid of volume. What are some of my other lessons learned in freezer bag cooking? Like I said, no problems with the potatoes, worked great. These rice and pasta blends, they work okay. They'll reconstitute pretty well. What you have to remember is when you look at the instructions on the bag, okay, this one says, and I sometimes would have some butter with me, so I would put it in, but it wants you to do 2 cups of water. Well, remember, if you're going to cook it in here, then you need 2 cups of water, because about a half a cup is going to boil away in the process of cooking, because you're going to cook this for 7 minutes. Well, if you're freezer back cooking, the idea is to use minimal amount of fuel. Okay, well, if it's going to rehydrate in the bag, you're not going to use 2 cups of water. You're going to have chicken flavored rice and pasta soup. Okay, so I would always take off a half a cup. So in this particular case, I'd use 1.5 cups. What I found with this North Selects, okay, and this is something you need to consider. This wants you to cook, let's see, 1.5 cups of water and 1 cup of milk. So that's 2.5 cups. That will not fit in here, that amount of volume. I did 1 3/4 cups of water, and this turned out perfect rehydrating it. Also, the second lesson learned here is a rule of thumb. You know, if this says to cook it for 10 minutes with another 2 minutes of simmering, that's 12 minutes. 24 minutes is how long I would let it rehydrate, so I double it. And okay, this says cook it for, I think it was 7 minutes. 7 minutes. So double that. Cook it for 14 minutes, or let it rehydrate for 14 minutes, is a good rule of thumb. So if you're hungry and you got a tent to set up, come in, pull out your stuff, heat up your water, throw your food in your hydration bag, in your freezer bag hydration pouch here, and then go set up your tent, get things ready to go. Figure out where you're going to put your bear bag. So, all right. So we said the Idaho potatoes work real well. These rice and pasta blends work real well. Okay. This North Select, once again, was my favorite. Okay. These little rotini pastas, I never could get them to rehydrate. They were always tough, a little bit more than al dente. Okay. And they never really absorbed the water real well if you weren't cooking them. So I always ended up with this little cheesy, watery slur that was in the bag, and pasta that wasn't quite cooked all the way. So not my favorite. Okay. Things that are noodles, the Parmesan, the noodles, I cannot get. They stick together when you try and rehydrate them. They never would cook all the way, so the ones in the middle were a little tough, sometimes a little crunchy. Once again, I found that the actual pasta sides themselves are kind of a no-go. Didn't work real well for me. Especially this pasta here. Okay, this Parmesan, the fettuccine, especially the big flat fettuccine, they would stick together and they would be awful. Did not really work real well with the pasta sides. Another source of protein, I forgot. This, this might be a little bit too much to eat for lunch. I would eat half of this, and honestly, because of all the nitrates and preservatives in here, I mean, look, it's not refrigerated. It's not required to be refrigerated until you open it. So obviously, it's got enough preservatives in here to be able to make it to dinner time. So I would eat half of one of these, and then while I was rehydrating my meal, I'd eat the other half. I usually wouldn't mix this with anything. So another source of protein. Of course, peanut butter is another source of protein. a lot of people would use. Okay, so that's kind of what's for dinner. A lot of different options, how to use your freezer bag pouch, and but honestly, like I said, the the pastas themselves, I really had a hard time getting them to rehydrate. So anyway, um, let's see, volume wise. Let me give you an example of volume here. So here's here's the packaging. If I were to just pull this off, usually, and then just dump it in here. If I felt like I needed to, in the instructions, you can cut out the instructions and slip it down in the bag. Okay. And the first time I use these, because it's like, okay, I want to make sure I get this right. So I just cut this out. You throw it in there. Okay. So zip it up, get the air out of it, and then it wraps up with a lot less volume than this. Okay, and you can get this to pack down in your bear bag, in your food bag, a lot easier. Plus, as I said, with the ramen noodles, mix some chicken in with the ramen noodles, and then I would take about half of one of these, okay, and add it to the ramen noodles to kind of thicken it up and turn it into kind of a little bit of a ramen bomb. And of course, mashed potatoes you can add to anything, okay, especially if you get something like a 4 cheese. You can add that to anything to kind of thicken it up, to add a little bit more substantialness to it, if you will. So, alrighty, that's about it for freezer bag cooking. It's not hard. Once you're done with your meal, you seal it up, and the first one you can use as your food bag until it gets full, and after that you just fold them up, seal them up, throw them in your food bag, and your garbage bag, and off you go. And of course, you're also your garbage bags you're gonna put in your bear bag at night, by the way. Now, hiker hint here. In an area where I know there's a bunch of rodents, I have been known to take my little garbage bag and open it up, okay, and put it outside the tent, and you can hear them scurrying around and bothering all that stuff all night long, but they don't bother you. Especially if you're around, if you're sheltering that night, you throw it out there, all those mice will go after the easy food and they'll leave your pack alone. Now it does make a little bit of mess. Got to get up in the morning, put all that stuff back in there, sanitize your hands real well, since they probably defecated all over it. But may not be the no trace way of doing things, but it sure beats having a hole chewed in your backpack. So, all right, everybody, if you've got questions about this, put it in the comment section, and when I do my weekly Q&A, we'll address some of those. All right, see you later, everybody. Bye.